Autonomous vehicles are being touted as one of the most disruptive technologies of our time. No longer living in the realms of science fiction, this futuristic concept of driverless cars cruising our city streets can now actually become our reality. We may be the last generation to own cars. Our children and grandchildren may never even have to learn how to drive. So when are these robo-cars actually coming? Well, believe it or not, they're actually here. They're currently being driven around and tested in various locations across the globe. In Phoenix, Arizona, a company called Waymo have recently deployed an entire fleet in full autonomous mode without anyone in the driver's seat. A little closer to home, Origo have deployed a convoy of self-driving pods in Milton Keynes. They can travel up to 15 miles per hour and are being used as a shuttle service in between the train station and the town centre. Now, these case studies are very much still on their beta stage of testing, so don't go throwing away your driver's licence just yet. But the self-driving car revolution is gaining speed, and the day will be with us a lot sooner than we think. Recent announcements from governments, tech companies and car makers have accelerated this digital transformation. By 2040, it's estimated that 95% of all vehicles sold will be entirely autonomous. A $3.6 trillion opportunity. Big opportunity draws big competition. Google, Tesla, Uber, BMW are all competing to make the next revolutionary breakthrough. Apple, IBM, Intel are also after a slice of the pie. Compute infrastructure and analytics is crucial to all of this, so where should Apple start positioning themselves? The point is, with such a large prize up for grabs, digital transformation is inevitable. Companies and governments have to innovate, and they have to invest in these new technologies. Otherwise, they risk being left behind. So let's fast forward 25 years and imagine what this future world with driverless cars will look like. It's a Monday morning, you wake up, you summon your private car with an app on your phone. You get the kids ready, bundle them into the back seat, and the car drives them to school. The car comes back, you hop in, and you start your commute to work. Now this car is pretty great. It's got a designated work area and sleep area, a fully stocked fridge, an HD TV on the back panel. So you sit, you sip on your coffee, you catch up on the news, and you usually have enough time to get a head start on your work day. You get to the office and you realise you don't have any food in the house for dinner that night. No problem. You pull out your phone, order the groceries you need, and send your car to the supermarket to go and pick them up. The car then realises it has no other assignments for the day, so it drives about 50 minutes outside of the city to a remote parking lot. And it waits. Now, it's a Friday, so you decide to have a couple of drinks with your colleagues after work. You have one too many, you get a bit tipsy, and you're probably over the limit. But it's fine. You summon the car to come and pick you up and take you home safely. You're not putting yourself or anyone else at risk. You get home, you're a little bit tipsy, but then you realise that your kids have football practice that night. So you schedule the car to go and pick them up and bring them home. All the while you could be cracking on with some house chores and preparing dinner with the food the car had collected earlier. How great does that sound? As we can see, driverless cars are going to have a huge impact on our day-to-day lives. There'll be reduced emissions, improved access and mobility for the disabled, the elderly, the blind. And we're going to have lots more free time. An incredible stat is that the average UK commuter spends well over a year of their lifetime travelling into work. Imagine if we could spend that time doing something productive or something worthwhile. The output in GDP is predicted to be huge. But the greatest advantage of self-driving cars is safety. Globally, 1.3 million people die in road traffic accidents every year. A further 20 to 40 million people are left injured or disabled. But the most worrying stat out of all of these is that 94% of all road traffic accidents are caused by human error. They're avoidable. Autonomous technology would eliminate human error and save countless lives in the process. The benefits of driverless cars are clear and obvious, so what's the problem? Let's invest as much as we can into these new technologies accelerate this digital transformation and get driverless cars onto the road as soon as possible. But this topic is surrounded by controversy. There are huge question marks that exist, and the question is, what kind of ethical framework do we program into our autonomous vehicles? This is best explained by talking you through a thought experiment. Imagine, if you will, sometime in the near future, you're being driven along in your autonomous vehicle when a metal container falls off the back of a lorry in front of you. There are three potential outcomes. Number one, the car stays on course, you collide with the container, and you're killed. Number two, you avoid the danger, swerve left, but hit a child. Or number three, you swerve right and hit a group of 3 adults. What's the correct decision? Do you sacrifice yourself, spare the child because they're younger, or do you save the adults because more lives are at stake? What if the ultimatum was 2 motorcyclists? Do you collide with the one wearing a helmet because they're more likely to survive? Or do you hit the one without because they're the one being reckless and breaking the law? If you or I were driving that car in manual mode, whatever way we react would be understood as exactly that. A reaction, not a deliberate decision. It would be an instinctual panicked move with no forethought or malice. But if a programmer were to instruct the same car to make the same move, given conditions it may sense in the future, well, that starts to look more like premeditated homicide. In the absence of a human driver, the car would be acting as a targeting algorithm of sorts, systematically favouring or discriminating against a certain type of object or person to crash into. Those in the line of fire would suffer through no fault of their own, and the passenger of the autonomous vehicle wouldn't have a choice. They wouldn't even have a say in the matter. Could it be the case that a random emotional decision is still better than a premeditated one designed to deliver the best outcome? Most of us have probably seen the movie I, Robot. In the clip I'm about to show you, 2 cars crash into a river and they start filling up with water. In one, a 12-year-old girl. In the other, a police officer played by Will Smith. A robot has to decide who to save.
Just a few more minutes before we figure it out. And as Ford was passing by, saw the accident and jumped in the water.
You are in danger. You are in danger. Save her! Save the girl! Save her!
But it didn't save me.
The robot's brain is a difference engine. It's reading vital signs. It must have calculated that.
It did. I was the logical choice. Calculated that I had a 45% chance of survival. Sarah only had an 11% chance. That was somebody's baby. 11% is more than enough. A human being would have known that. Robots, nothing here, just lights and clockwork. Go ahead and you trust them if you want to. Let's go.
So the robot had to make a decision based on survival probability, similar to what a driverless car might have to do. As far as it was concerned, it had made the correct calculation. Will Smith believes a human would have acted differently, and despite wanting the robot to save the girl, he wasn't the one in control. So practically, how do we reach a general consensus when it comes to deciding what the correct ethical framework should be? Do we trust governments and lawmakers to come up with the answers? What about the car makers themselves? In 2016, Mercedes said the preference would be to save the driver over the pedestrian. But how safe would you feel walking on the high street knowing every Mercedes car you saw was going to turn and run you over in order to save John, who just spent a load of money on his brand new car? Maybe we should run a public survey to find out what society wants. Ian Rallan, who's a professor of AI and ethics in the US, he ran such a survey. Now, generally speaking, people can align themselves to one of two moral philosophies. Number one, utilitarian ethics. Minimise total harm. So you should sacrifice yourself or an innocent bystander not originally in harm's way if it meant saving a greater number of lives. Or number two, duty-bound principles. Thou shalt not kill. You should not explicitly harm another human being. The car should stay on its natural course, even if that's going to harm more people. Here's what he found. Most people sided with number one. It seems people want cars to be utilitarian, minimise total harm, and that's what we should all do. Problem solved. But there's a catch. When he asked the same people if they would personally buy those cars, guess what they said? Absolutely not. They wanted cars for themselves that would protect themselves at all costs, but they wanted everybody else to buy cars that would minimise harm. This is what's called a social dilemma. What would you do? If you're not sure and you'd like to put yourself to the test, then a website's been set up called The Moral Machine. It generates loads of random scenarios, similar to the ones I was discussing earlier, and you have to choose what the car should do in a variety of situations. You're presented with the age, the gender, the profession, and even the species of the different victims. So far, the website's collected around 5 million decisions from over 1 million people across the globe. It not only helps us understand what kind of trade-offs people are comfortable with, but more importantly, it shows us the difficulty of making these decisions, and that regulators, whoever they might be, are tasked with impossible choices. The best thing about the website is that it gives you a kind of a summary of your results at the end, your choices, so whether you chose to save the young over the elderly and so on. This is one user's results, and thankfully it's not a typical example. Let's hope not anyway. Not too sure about that, but it's the ones in control. Now, some people say, let's not worry about all these scenarios where things go wrong. Let's just wait until the technology is perfect and everything's 100% safe. But let's say indeed driverless cars can eliminate 99% of road traffic accidents in the next 10 years. What if eliminating the final 1%, i.e. perfection, takes another 50 years of research? Do we not adopt the technology? That's 60 million more people dead in car accidents if we maintain the current death rate. So the point is, waiting for full safety is also a choice, and it also involves trade-offs. Now, I'm not saying I know all the answers, and thankfully I'm not the one who has to make all these decisions. Driverless cars are set to do some wonderful things, but there are questions companies and governments haven't even begun to answer yet. What ethical framework is the right one? Who defines the rules? How do we reach a general consensus? And even if we do, are the public really ready to surrender their control when it comes to life or death situations? I think we need to take a step back, take our time, and think about the implications of rushing into things too quickly. There's no doubt digital transformation is the new normal. It's the competitive world we live in. But just how far are we willing to go when it comes to a premeditated line of code making our ethical decisions for us? Will that really become the accepted norm? And if it does, should it?